Have you ever wanted to try out crochet but it just seems like there's a little too much to learn? Well, today's the day you can start. I'm Rain and I make quite a lot of crochet, mostly hoods at the moment. Although I sell these, I love it when people feel inspired by them and want to make their own. So I really wanted to create something that would help you along in that process. I can't make a tutorial for these specific hoods because the base hood pattern belongs to another creator, that's Crocheted by Drew on Etsy, and you should definitely check out their page if you want to make a hood. I just switched out the horns for ears. But what I can do for you is teach you the things that you need to learn in order to be able to follow a pattern. So I'm starting a new series of videos covering the absolute basics about crochet, from the simplest stitches to crocheting in the round to learning to read a pattern, and eventually these will all be in a playlist on my page for easy access. Today we're going to start right at the beginning with making a slip knot, chaining stitches, and learning the 3 basic stitches you need to know. That's a single crochet, double crochet and triple crochet in US terms. Once you know these, you can start making some simple things like cute bandanas or even beanies. As a note, all of these videos will be using US terms. I know that might seem strange because I am clearly not from the US, but I learned using US terms. It's the easiest for me, and most of the patterns that I follow use US terms, so that's what I'm going to talk about. It's quite easy to switch between the two once you know one of them. So let's get started. So let's start by talking about the different kinds of crochet hooks. These are some examples of what I have. This green one's the most common kind you'll find, and you might use it when you first start crocheting. It's good, it works, but it can cause like aches. This is my favorite kind, but I only have 2 hooks that are this one. This one looks comfy, but actually it really rubs here. I ended up upgrading to this one, which is what I'll be using for this video. It's super ergonomic and super comfy, but it was more expensive than all of my other hooks. But this is what I use for all of my hoods, so it was worth it. And these are stitch markers. I will be using them in this video. You don't need stitch markers like this. You can use hairpins, pieces of yarn. I just prefer the stitch markers because they lock. And this is the yarn I'll be using. It is a super chunky, which is also known as a super bulky or a category 6 yarn. And I'll be using an 8mm hook. I'm using this chunky yarn and this big hook to make it a little bit easier for you to see the stitches. If you aren't following a pattern, you can pick any yarn and then just choose the hook size that it says on the label. Usually it will have a hook size listed. So let's get started. First things first, we're going to start with creating a slip knot. Now, this is just my way of working. I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's the only option. This is what works for me. So I like to use the hook to help me create my slip knot. So we're going to start by laying the yarn like this, and then we're going to cross it on the inside of our hand and put it around the back like this. Then we pop the hook underneath the first strand and over the second strand and pull it through. Then you just remove your fingers and pull it tight and you have a slip knot. You can loosen it, you can tighten it, it's nice and easy. That's what you want when you create a slip knot. So let's do that again. You lay the yarn across your hand like this. I like to hold it with my ring finger for security. Cross it over like that, flip over your hand. We're going to pop the hook under the first strand, over the second, and pull it through. And then just pull tight. And then just keep practicing that until you have it down and it's second nature. So now that you have your slip knot, let's make a chain. So you do this by holding the tail of your slip knot. So you want to yarn over, which means bringing the yarn in front of that hook and hooking onto it. I like to have my hook facing up for this section. And then just twist it down to make it easier to pull through, and pull that through that slip knot, and that is your first chain. It's as easy as that to create a chain. You just do that over and over until you reach the number on your pattern or the number you want. So again, yarn over, twist your hook to face down and pull it through that loop. Yarn over, twist your hook, pull it through the loop. And you have your chain, and you'll know if you got it right because it will look kind of like a braid on the front with those V-shaped stitches, and then if you flip it over you have these little bumps along the back, and that would be the back bump. If you're crocheting into the back bump, that's what you're crocheting into. So let's start over. We've got that slip knot on our hook. You're going to hold I like to hold the knot, but you can hold the tail, whichever is more comfortable for you. Yarn over by bringing the yarn behind and then in front of the hook. Twist your hook down and pull it through the loop. Yarn over, pull it through the loop. Yarn over, pull it through the loop, and just keep doing that until you reach the amount of chains that you want. So we're going to go for 10 chains, or a chain 10. So we'll be doing this 10 times until we have 10 of those little V-shaped stitches. And again, if it looks like this, you got it right. It looks like a braid at the front with the V shapes. And then if you flip it over, you've got those bumps on the back. They're a little hard to see here. I tried a bunch of different yarns and none of them really showed up very well, so I'm really sorry. Then I like to pop a stitch marker in the last stitch of that chain, just so I can remember where it is, because sometimes it's really hard to remember to count. So this little V here is the last stitch, and we're going to pop the stitch marker underneath both of those V loops, and also underneath that back bump so that it is through the middle of the stitch. So now you've got your stitch marker on, we're going to start our single crochet row. So to do a single crochet row, you want to chain 1. And you'll notice a pattern. When you do a double crochet, you chain 2. When you do a triple crochet, you chain 3. But for now, we'll be chaining 1. So exactly the same as you did for the rest, you just do 1 more of those. And now we're going to be crocheting into the back bump. Now you don't have to do this with the chain, but I do it pretty much all the time because it makes for a much neater finish. So we're going to basically force that hook into the back bump. Crocheting into the chain is not much fun. Nobody loves it, but it only lasts for 1 row, so it's not so bad. So yarn over and pull through that back bump. Then yarn over and pull through the 2 loops on your hook, and that will create your first single crochet. And again, I always like to pop a stitch marker in that first stitch just so I know where it is, because the worst thing you'll do is you'll be counting your stitches along a row and you'll just forget what number you're on. I do it all the time, or I forget to count and I get to the end of the row and I'm like, I have no idea where I was supposed to stop. So we're going to carry on crocheting along this row now, going into the back bump. So go into the next back bump. You can see here it can be a little awkward, but you get there in the end. Yarn over and pull through, and yarn over and pull through the 2 loops on your hook to create your second single crochet. We're going to keep doing that along the chain, and I'm going to go slowly just so that you can see how that works. And don't worry, if you're really hating this section, that's normal. I hate crocheting into the chain. I prefer to do a foundation row, which I will cover in a future lesson. But this is the basis of most crochet products, so it's definitely important to learn. So keep doing those single crochets into your chain until we reach 10 single crochets. This is my first time doing an in-depth crochet tutorial, so if there's anything you think I could improve on, please leave a comment, because I just want to do this to help you guys. So this is what that row should look like, and we're just going to do another row of single crochet just so you can see how it feels when it's not going into the chain. So again, you chain 1 to start your row because it is a row of single crochet. Single 1. And then you turn your work, because we want to work from right to left. I'm really sorry if you're left-handed. I have no idea how left-handed crochet works. I'm so sorry. But I will put a creator on the screen that will help you with your left-handed crochet. So we're going to insert the yarn into that first stitch, and that means you want to go underneath the 2 V shapes. So both posts of that V, and you can pull them apart on your hook just to make sure you're only underneath those. Then you want to yarn over and pull through that stitch, and then yarn over and pull through the 2 on your loop to create your stitch. Let's do that again. Sometimes a pattern will ask you to work into the back loop, and that is this one. So on that V, when you're looking top down, it's the one at the back. This is a technique that's commonly used for ribbing. So if you're ever doing ribbing on a project, you'll be asked to crochet into the back loop. But for now, we're going to crochet into both loops. So you want to insert your hook underneath those 2 posts of the V, and there should be 2 little parts of the V on your hook. Yarn over and pull through that stitch, and yarn over and pull through those 2 loops on your stitch to create that first single crochet. And again, a good practice, pop a stitch marker in that first stitch, just so you can see where it is. You don't have to, but it makes things so much easier. And we're going to continue to single crochet along this row. So insert the hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over and pull through 2, or the 2 loops on your stitch. I'm going to do this one a little bit faster because you've seen me do the row of single crochets already, and that probably gets quite boring. We're going to crochet until the end, and your last stitch will go into the stitch that has the stitch marker on it if you've been using stitch markers. And you may notice that my crochet here is kind of curving. That's normal. When you do the first couple of rows, it tends to happen, but it will straighten out as you go, as long as you are crocheting the right number of stitches. So we're at the end, and this is 2 rows of single crochet. You can see it's a very compact stitch. And that's why it's very commonly used for plushies or amigurumi, which is also known as, because it creates nice tight stitches where stuffing isn't going to fall out of the holes. The downside to a single crochet is that it takes a lot longer to work up because you just need to do more rows of it to make the same size. So let's move on to a double crochet. So as before, how many do we chain? We chain 2 for a double crochet. Double is 2. So chain 2, and then your first stitch will be that 3rd one from the hook. So for a double crochet, we yarn over first, put your hook underneath the stitch, yarn over and pull through, and you'll see that there are 3 loops on your hook. So we want to yarn over and pull through 2 of those loops. And then yarn over and pull through the last 2. And that creates your very first double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that stitch, making sure that the 2 parts of the V are on top of your hook, yarn over and pull through, and yarn over and pull through 2 of the loops, and yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops. And that is the structure of a double crochet. So we're going to do this row in double crochet. So work all of those double crochets along the row, and remember you should have 10 stitches. And I know it looks complicated now as a beginner, but I promise that as you practice and as you develop your skills, it will become second nature. You won't even notice the stitches that you're making, you'll just be making them. So your last stitch goes into that stitch with the stitch marker. That is a lot of use of the word stitch. And there we are. So that is our 2 single crochet rows and a double crochet row, and you can see that the double crochet is literally twice the size of a single crochet, but it's a lot more holy, so to speak. It's not quite as dense as a single crochet, and you could stick your finger through it if you tried. It doesn't work so well for things like amigurumi, but I use this stitch mostly for my hoods. I also use it for my beanies. It works out really quickly, and I really like the texture it creates. So finally, let's talk about a triple crochet. I don't like triple crochet, but we're going to talk about it anyway because it is useful. So, being triple, we're going to chain 3. And then we want to yarn over and yarn over again. So you have 3 little loops on your hook. Insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull through. Now you want to yarn over and pull through 2. Yarn over and pull through 2 more, this can be a little fiddly, and then yarn over and pull through 2 a 3rd time, and that is a triple crochet. So let's do that again. We're going to yarn over twice, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2 again, doesn't matter if it gets caught, you can just carry on pulling through, and then yarn over and pull through 2 a 3rd time to create your next triple crochet. Now I did forget to put the stitch marker in, so let's do that. 2 stitches back, because we have done 2 stitches. Now something you'll see very commonly with triple crochet is that you'll do a chain 1 after the stitch, and then you'll skip a stitch and insert into the 2nd stitch from the last one. So skip a stitch and you want to go into the next one. Insert your hook, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2 a 3rd time. And that creates this really gappy stitch, and that's what we're going to do for our last row. This works really well for like a mesh. I've used it to make a mesh top before, but it's not super commonly used, at least not in the patterns that I use. So we're going to do our whole row with those gaps, just because that I think is the most common way you'll see this used. So straight after you've done your chain 3, you want to chain an extra one. Then you want to do your triple crochet, not into the next stitch, but into the one after. After the stitch, chain 1. And then your next triple crochet, so yarn over twice, insert your hook not into the next stitch but into the following one, yarn over and pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2 a 3rd time, and then chain 1, and we're going to do that all the way along. And this should give us 5 triple crochet stitches with chain spaces in between them. And that's it. That is what your piece should look like. Now, this isn't to make anything. This is to practice those stitches. Yeah, chain 1, pull through, and then cut the yarn. And that is that panel finished. We haven't weaved in the ends yet, but we will cover that one in a future lesson. Now you can practice perfecting these different stitches, create some flat swatches, and get used to how it feels. The next mini crochet guide will cover the half stitches, so keep an eye out for that next month. And be sure to drop me a comment to let me know if there's anything you would specifically like to learn when it comes to crochet. If you enjoyed this video, drop me a like, and if you'd like to see more videos from me, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye!